How's it going, everyone? This is Jack here with the Commander's Wire, and welcome back to another video. There is one team in the NFL that has made a couple major moves today, releasing some of their star players, looking toward a full-on rebuild under a new regime. But before we get into that, I really would appreciate it if you guys would go down below, drop a like, subscribe, and turn on post notifications to know when I post next. I really do appreciate it, and it lets me know that you guys want more Commanders content just like this. And without further ado, let's get right into the video. So it was reported today that the Miami Dolphins had made a couple big moves releasing some of their players. The first guy they decided to release was one of their major voices in the locker room and star veteran with the Miami Dolphins, Bradley Chubb. He's an edge rusher from North Carolina State University. He was first drafted by the Broncos, then traded to the Dolphins a couple years ago, and he's been a major voice in the locker room. As I said before, he's been a real leader in the locker room, been with the team through thick and thin, and they're deciding to release him today. I believe that this was always the plan for him with the Dolphins. They decided to restructure his contract last year to make his cap hit last year much less, and now that his big salary hit this year is about to cash in, they decided to release him to void that entirely. Now, Miami Dolphins also decided to release Pro Bowl wide receiver Tyreek Hill. Both of these players are on the wrong side of 30, with Bradley Chubb being 30 years old exactly, and Tyreek Hill turning 32 here in the next month or two, I believe. Obviously, Bradley Chubb has struggled with injuries in the past. I believe he's had a torn ACL. He's had other major injuries with his lower body. And then obviously Tyreek Hill has had a major ACL tear just this season, and he's recovering from that. So both of these guys could be names to watch with the Washington Commanders. So as I said before, Tyreek Hill did have a major ACL tear that occurred earlier this season. He only played in 4 games. However, in those 4 games, he caught 21 passes for 265 yards. He had a total of 1 touchdown, and he averaged 12.5 yards per reception. Obviously not great numbers, but he only played in 4 games. Now, last year, he played in all 17 games. He had 81 catches for 959 yards, averaged 11.8 yards per reception, had 6 touchdowns. And besides, I believe 2025 and 2019, Tyreek Hill has played in almost every game during the regular season. And I believe that even though he's dealt with some things outside of football, as a player, that is really good to see that he's been able to stay on the field, even as a receiver, which is a very demanding position for the body, with your lower body, right, being shifty, being speedy. That can obviously make a player susceptible to, right, tearing your ACL, tearing your Achilles, a lot of major injuries that can occur. But he's been able to stay on the field for most of his career when it comes to his health. Obviously, he's missed some games here and there. He's dealt with things out off the field. But this is his first major injury, I believe, that has really taken this season away for Tyreek Hill. Now, for Bradley Chubb, I'm pretty sure he missed the entire 2024 season with a major injury, so he did not record any stats for that year. However, he was traded to the Miami Dolphins from the Denver Broncos in what I believe is 2022, and in 2023, his first full season with the Dolphins, he played in 16 games. He had 73 total tackles, with 45 of those being solo. He had 11 sacks, 6 forced fumbles, 2 fumble recoveries, and 2 passes deflected. Obviously, he didn't play in 2024, but in 2025, he played in all 17 games. He definitely took a step back in terms of his production. He only had 47 tackles, 24 of those being solo. He still had 8.5 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, 1 fumble recovery. It was still a cornerstone for the Dolphins defense. Obviously, they weren't very good, so I can't really say too much about that. However, Bradley Chubb definitely was making himself known on the defensive line for the Miami Dolphins, even though they weren't that good in the first place. Now, he did have a major cap hit, so I'm not surprised that the Dolphins decided to release him. He's not coming off a major injury. However, the production definitely slowed down. He's on the wrong side of 30. Same thing with Tyreek Hill. Both of them are still now more susceptible to injuries. They're definitely slowing down, and I believe that they're going to be finding new teams that are going to be paying them much less, finish out the rest of their career, hopefully for contenders, and obviously that is not what the Miami Dolphins are looking for as they're moving off of some older veterans that are not going to be with them for the long haul. Now, what does that mean for the Washington Commanders? Could the Commanders sign Tyreek Hill? Could they sign Bradley Chubb? Could they sign both? Short answer, no. I do not think either of those signings would be a very good idea. Tyreek Hill being 32 years old, Terry McLaurin just turned 30, and even though I don't think it was necessarily his fault that he was off the field so much this year, obviously the contract negotiations played a part. He did not play that much in the preseason, was not there for training camp, and ultimately got injured, wasn't on the field. And I'm hoping that doesn't continue as he's progressing into his 30s over the next couple of years under his new contract extension. I don't think that blueprint is a good thing to follow with Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill, like I said, 32 years old, even though he has been very productive, coming off of this major injury, he's going to be wanting a lot of money still. He still believes he's a top wide receiver in the league. I think that he probably is a top wide receiver in the league. However, after this major injury, I don't think the Commanders need to fork out that much money to get a top receiver. I think the Commanders are still technically under a rebuild, and forking out that much money for Tyreek Hill, who probably won't even be in the league after a couple years, is not a good idea at all. He probably may find himself maybe back with the Chiefs, who are still definitely in contention regardless of how their season ended last year. Patrick Mahomes is going to come back. A lot of their starters are going to come back healthy, and I believe they're going to find themselves right into the playoffs once again. He may want to reunite with Patrick Mahomes in Kansas City. We'll just have to see. But I don't think Tyreek Hill has any spot with the Washington Commanders, regardless of what anyone says. Tyreek Hill and the Washington Commanders is a meeting that no one wants unless he wants to take an absolute vet minimum, and we're able to get Tyreek Hill, assuming that he is healthy and even slightly ready to go once the 2026 season, and we're only paying him like $1 million, but that is not realistic at all. So Tyreek Hill probably not coming to the Commanders, and that is fine with me. Now for Bradley Chubb, I think that even though he took a step back after tearing his ACL, he is someone that can definitely help a defense, assuming that they're a contending team. He just turned 30. He's definitely aging, like I said before, coming off a major injury. I don't know if that's someone the Commanders need to be looking for. We already have Dorrance Armstrong. He obviously is not that old. However, he is definitely a veteran. I don't know if adding an even older veteran on the opposite side is the best idea. We already had Von Miller. Didn't work out. We all saw that adding aging veterans to a not so young team in the first place is not a recipe for success. Adam Peters thought that we were only a couple moves away from contending for a Super Bowl. Obviously, that is not the case. We were not a couple moves away from contending for a Super Bowl, and we saw that this past season. So adding Bradley Chubb to that defensive line, though may work out, will not work out for the long haul. If this team was a playoff contender like we were in 2024, I would say, yeah, Bradley Chubb may be a name to add, rather than going after a Von Miller like we did last season. However, we are not. We only had 5 wins this season. We need to continue to rebuild this team from the ground up, and unfortunately, Bradley Chubb, regardless of his alma mater being at NC State, he is not someone that I want to see in Washington with the Washington Commanders. So in conclusion, Tyreek Hill, not going to be a Commander. Bradley Chubb, not going to be a Commander. We need to get younger. We need to start from the bottom up, draft young guys, sign young free agents, and allow this team to continue to develop from youth. We can't keep adding expensive aging veterans to rebuild this team. It just doesn't work like that. You need to have homegrown talent. That's how baseball is like. Baseball is very homegrown. You have an entire farm system, multiple minor league teams, and players will move up the ladder. They may jump to another ladder depending on if teams trade them. And I think that is exactly how the football needs to work as well. You need to draft young guys, allow them to develop under your system, and maybe in a year or two, they can find themselves in the starting roster. Obviously, you're going to add a couple pieces here and there in free agency, but it can't be these really old guys unless you're contending for a Super Bowl, and you know that you will make it there within the next season. So this is the end of today's video. I really do appreciate you guys watching to the very end. Obviously, some more major news will be coming out soon about other players that are potentially going to be released, and I will have more videos coming out if they are players to watch with the Washington Commanders. Like I said before, thank you guys so much for watching. Please go down below, drop a like, subscribe, and turn on post notifications to know when I post next. You guys will be notified whenever I upload more Commanders content just like this, and comment down below. Do you guys want to see the Commanders sign Tyreek Hill and Bradley Chubb? You guys already know my opinion. I say definitely not leave them on the free agency market. They can find themselves on other teams, but let me know if that's something that you guys would want to see here in Washington. Thank you guys so much for watching. God bless, and hail to the Commanders.